Greetings from Scottsdale, Arizona, specifically Westworld in Scottsdale at Barrett Jackson, 2023. We are in the very fancy corral here, which you can see is now many tents. You and I are going to go through a couple of select cars after I've gone through every one of the tents here, and I'm going to show you some of the trends that I'm seeing here in Scottsdale. Let's start with this car, a BMW Z8. This is a 2001. You guys may remember this car was built off the M5 platform, basically the E39 M5. It had the 400 horsepower M5 engine, and this was fitted with a manual transmission from the factory. This was a stunner because, look, it was effectively a show car that came to life, and it kind of echoed the 507 back in the day, but it was modern. It wasn't, I wouldn't call this a retro car. It's a modern car with some historic details in it. But really what I want to talk about here today is the value. Back in the day, brand new, these were $128,000 US, which that's a lot of money in 2001. And the question is, how did these keep pace? Did they keep pace with inflation? Did they overperform in terms of being classic cars? Or have they retreated somewhat, meaning you lost money on the car? Well, this one here sold for, over this week, $182,000, which sounds like that's good money. You made, what, $60,000, $50,000, something like that, from 2001. In reality, if you look at an inflation calculator, you lost money. Because this, if you look at the inflation from 2001 to 2023, the same $128,000 would be about $214,000 in today's money. So you really didn't keep pace with inflation. And you know, it's funny, a lot of the folks that talked about these things when they're new, like Keith Martin from Sports Car Market, he had said that these cars will never be collector cars. Would I go that far? No. These cars will be collector cars. Obviously, there is a market for them at an elevated price, but the market hasn't said that these things are worth more than they were new. I think that's going to change. I think these things will start to keep pace with inflation. Do I think that they will go beyond that? That part, I don't know. This is a Viper. This is a 1994 in an unusual color. It's not red. It's a green that came from the factory with the gray seats. 6,900 original miles. But here's the thing, it only sold for 55 grand. And when you think, here again, a 400 horsepower sports car, it's amazing that this thing actually came to life. This was Bob Lutz in his day, basically saying no to Lee Iacocca. You can watch my Inside the MotoMan studio episode where he talks about how this car came to life. And the reality is, that car, I think, should be more money. And when I went up to it, I'm like, that seems like really cheap money for a lot of share in the classic car world, especially one in really good condition. As you can see, it's a busy Saturday here. But 55 grand for this? You can't really even buy a new BMW for this. And this is going to be a reliable car that won't leave you on the side of the road. Granted, but ideally, it probably not. It's a pain in the ass to drive because you've got these ridiculous button-in windows and this top that's like origami and getting on and off. But it turns out Dave Kinney, our good friend, who is the founder and publisher of Hagerty Price Guide, this money here is between a 1 and 2 car. So this actually sold for below 1 money in terms of condition, and I would call that car a solid 2+, meaning it's better than a driver, and especially when you consider it's got such low miles, that probably should have been 75,000 US. Take a wild guess what this one sold for. It's got low miles as well, only 28,000 original miles, but it sold for 41,000. Now this car, you would think they're trading, let's see, a GTS, they're the better part of 200 grand at this point. Our good friend Peter Klutt just sold one for $200,000 a GTS, a 1990 GT. Got a buddy of mine who owns a black one with about 50,000 miles. That car he regularly turns down about 65, 70 grand. But this one at $41,000, it's cheap, but the question is why it's cheap. I pulled out the Hagerty Price Guide from Dave Kinney, And it turns out the automatics, they are a 25% deduct in the price of the car. So if that was a manual transmission, it would be 25% more. And I looked at the book, and it was like spot on. That 41,000 is right where the 25% deduct is. This one here, it is like new in the wrapper. This car is a stunning color. It's gray. It's not the prettiest color in the world, but it's a good color combination because there's contrast. Notice you got the gray, tan interior, so it's a pretty car. It doesn't have a lot of options. It does have the factory sunroof, but take a look. It sold for $125,000 US. If this was just a regular 993 with normal miles, these things are going 75, 80 grand. So the 15 grand really has paid dividends. And I would argue this was a smart decision bringing that car to Barrett Jackson because there's more people that want that. It doesn't look like much, does it? It's a very early model of the second-gen Monte Carlo. First gen Monte Carlo. But look at the condition it's in. The paint is perfect. The chrome is perfect. You don't see them in this condition. You've got the rally wheels and then the vinyl roof. So it's got some options, but most importantly, this car is a 4-speed. I've never, it's in the past 6 months that I've seen this and a Pontiac, same year, same vintage Pontiac Grand Prix, which was built on the same platform. I never knew these were even offered as a manual transmission, and sure enough, now within 6 months, we saw that Pontiac at the Chattanooga Motor Car Festival at Meekum, and here's a manual transmission Monte Carlo, and this one, even with the manual, is only 50 grand. And now it doesn't sound, I sound ridiculous saying, only 50 grand. That doesn't buy you a lot in the classic car world. And here is a beautifully restored, wonderful design car. Now you see the beauty of this car because of the condition it's in. Look at the manual. This is really a pretty car. 65 grand Sport. And this one's got the buckets with a floor shift in it. But look at the restoration of this car. It's got the rally wheels, which were optional. And it is in beautiful shape. These are hard to restore because they're expensive to restore because the chrome is a lot of money. The bits on the inside, take a look here. It's got the Grand Sport steering wheel. And then look at the color. It's not a period color. It stands out, but that was an original color. And this one, the world has finally accepted these. These sold for the longest time for $20,000, $92,000. And I got to tell you, am I excited that these things have gone up in price? No, because I want to buy one. However, these have deserved these kind of numbers for a long time, and it's very, very good to see that these things are starting to be accepted by the classic, really respected by the classic car world. 18,446 original miles. It's literally still in its original color. No one molested the car. The only thing that's been done to it, it has the tinted glass, but this one, it came from the factory as a manual, and the only option it really has is the sport roof. It probably also has the JBL stereo system in it, which was a factory option. I want to try to get a shot here for you guys. There you go. You can see that car there. Thank you, sir. So you guys know these things have gotten expensive, right? 100 grand. Some went 120 grand. This one, $170,000. So the collector car market is really accepting the JDM world. I wouldn't call that so much just JDM. This is an Eldorado Biarritz. So this is the second gen. So these were new in 1979. This one is special for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's really, really low miles. This one, from what I remember, it only has 16,000 original miles. Now, granted, it's a little gaudy. Someone put this aftermarket grille, which frankly is not very attractive. And then they put this Continental kit on the back, also not very attractive. These are dealer-installed options, but this one is the Biarritz, which brought this stainless steel roof here, and then brought this trim, basically added the trim and the vinyl roof. And then it had the tufted interior. I can't open it for you. But look at the interior. It is in perfect shape. You normally don't see these in really good shape, and that's why this car got a whopping $24,000. Most of these are worth $3 to $5 grand because they're in crappy condition. But this one, which is in beautiful shape, granted, not the spec I'd want. You guys know I want to buy one of these, but I want one with no vinyl roof, no Biarritz, with a factory sunroof and better colors than this. But still, the market has started to come up, and they realize there's some value here because it's only 16,000 miles, and you don't need to restore that car. And that you could drive every day. So this is like what I would call the fat Elvis years. It's kind of bloated. This is a Biarritz as well, so it's got the stainless steel trim off to the side there. This one is special because it's not just a Biarritz. It's a Biarritz that has the 8-track. That was an option. It's got the leather interior, again, tufted like that other one we just saw. And this one has the factory sunroof. This was 10% of the car's base price for the, well, technically, Rick, yeah, you could call these second gen, but the shape is still the same. This factory sunroof was something like more than 10% of the base price of the car. So even with all that unique stuff, and frankly, the color ain't bad, the condition looks okay, this is a driver, only 10 grand. Look at that. 10 grand. This one had the same 400 engine as the Firebird. Number 2, these were like a special edition of Pontiac, like mid-size Pontiac at that point, that they made this sport coupe with this Can-Am package. They originally were thinking they were only going to make 2,500 of these. So many orders poured in. They ended up getting orders for 5,000, double, but then they had to stop production because the mold in the back, the spoiler, it broke at the factory, so they decided, you know what, we're just going to move on to the next model year. This one is fitted with the Hurst T-tops. So these were technically from the factory, but not really from the factory. They were cut in after the fact, but they came in through the dealer ordering. This one, for some reason, doesn't have the console shift in the console. That was something that was fitted from the factory, I believe. So, now, I don't know if I believe the whole description here. This could have been a bench seat car, and they put the buckets in after the fact, because I've never seen one without the console. Anyway, those of you guys that know these cars better than me, perhaps you can weigh in and give me an understanding of whether that was an option from the factory or not. If you talk to the Shelby world, there's a lot of dissent of whether these cars are accepted as original Shelbys. I'm not a big Shelby guy, so I don't have a horse in this race. But here's something that's a unique piece of history in really good shape. So, like, take a look at this thing. Again, it's kind of locked up here. This one has the factory sunroof. This one has the factory stereo. It came with the side skirts as well as those wheels over there. It's unique, but it was built on a front-wheel drive K-car platform, and what they did is they put in a turbocharged four-cylinder engine. So it was effectively the same four-cylinder. You got the biggest version of four-cylinder from Chrysler at that point. They added the turbocharger and then made this kind of like a muscle car. I want to show you guys here. It's got the window sticker, which you can see all of the options listed, including the $310 for the glass sunroof, which not nearly as much of a percent of the base price as the Cadillac. Of course, you knew I had to show you a Fiero. Come on, you guys know I'm doing that. And this one's almost identical to the one that I drove in this very state. I bought it like 20 miles from where I'm standing right now. A white 1984 2M4 with the factory sunroof. This one's in really, really good shape. And you want to see the bargain this is? $8 grand. To give you an idea, I sold mine in the early 90s for $5 grand. Think about that. That is effectively free. You lost money. Basically, if I kept my car, I would have lost money. Stunning Pontiac Bonneville convertible. This one, not highly optioned. It doesn't have the 8-lug wheels, which were the drum brakes that made up the center of the wheel. And this one's a bench seat, not a console car. There's a Pontiac Solstice. You guys may remember I used to have a Saturn Sky Redline. Mine I actually sold and made some money on. I sold it private party. This one they're starting to see some love in the collector car world because remember, these things are now, 15 years old? This one sold for 25 grand. It's a 2006 and it's not a GXP. Wow, that's a lot of money. Keep in mind, new. That's about what these things were new. I am impressed. And this one, does it show the miles? It does not show the miles. It must be low miles, but the thing is in really good shape. If that car has high miles, the condition outside does not tell that story. So one would ask, why would someone pay $275,000 for a Porsche tractor? I mean, it's neat. It's a tractor that's a Porsche. Lamborghinis that were tractors. Lamborghini, that's how they got started. Porsche did not get started selling tractors. Porsche got started selling Volkswagens. This is if you have a hell of a Porsche collection and you need the punctuation to make it the ultimate Porsche collection. This is what you need, and that's why someone paid $275,000 for it. But Dave Kinney told me to buy these many years ago for $25,000 because that's what they were worth. You could all day long buy one of those for 25 grand, and obviously the opportunity has passed. 70 grand for 23,000 miles. Now here's where we get into some questionable items. Does that mean that it's original 23? Notice they say nowhere that it's original 23,000 miles. So when you look at things like this, you need to read between the lines and see what they are not telling you. So the fact that the mileage is not indicated on the title, and the fact that nothing here says original 23,000 miles, coupled with the price, tells me that is not the original miles. So it is in good shape. And just kind of looking around the car, it's a lovely thing, but I would not say original miles on that vehicle. The Toyota logo here, isn't that cool? I just spent a lot of time just geeking out about this thing just because of the logo. There's a Nissan Patrol, and it's a 3-door. Like, you see some of these come over from the Middle East, but not the 3 doors. And look at this one. Here is something really unique that you know will be reliable. And this one is a turbo diesel, $21,000. That, I would totally rock that thing. 1,000,000% would rock that thing. This came over as the 240 SX back in the day, but this is the Silvia in Japan, which it changed the front end. So when these came over as American cars, 240 SXs, they had pop-up headlights. This one does not have the pop-up headlights, and it looks like, yeah, this may have been a factory convertible back in the day, but it could have been like they did with the Infiniti convertible back in the day, where it was originally sent as a coupe out, they cut the car and then sent it back to the factory, and it was sold as a factory convertible. Those of you that know the details about these, because this is a JDM car, this is an interesting one to me because I always loved these things back in the day. As a matter of fact, when I was an ASU student here, not far from here, one of 603 made. 23 grand. That's cheap JDM history right there. The last generation Firebird. This one in the yellow. But again, look at this. 28 grand with 2,500 miles. Knew these were more than that. I think this is one of these things you buy and hold. This one's got the factory T-tops. What is the transmission? These were on offer with a manual. This is a manual too. I do not know why this one sold for so little. Whoever got this, they got a hell of a bargain. 2,500 miles with a manual transmission in a car that has a factory naturally aspirated V8. That's a steal. Kind of like the 10 grand for that Cadillac. Let's wrap it up. I've presented a number of cars to you here. Everything from Mopars to Porsches, even some BMWs thrown there. And speaking of Mopars, here is a lovely Roadrunner. I don't know if this hasn't sold yet, but here is a lovely Roadrunner. Which one do you think was the best value of the cars that I've showed you? Granted, Barrett Jackson has another day and a half to go of sales, but which one do you think is the best value? And then number two, which car is your favorite car that I've showed you? Anyway, thank you guys for joining me on this fun tour. I've really enjoyed sharing this with you and just geeking out as a car guy. So until I see you in the next episode, bis später.